Welcome to the FinQuery Focus podcast, where we dive deep into the contract and spend intelligence queries that matter most to you. From finance, accounting, IT, and more, our experts are on deck to unpack how to optimize an organization's largest areas of spend outside payroll, which are typically leases, software, and other financial contracts. I'm your host, Shannon Matthews, inviting you to lean in today as we uncover the crucial items to get right when preparing for acquisition or sale. Today's episode focuses on a critical aspect often overlooked but paramount in driving up company value: mastering your software and contracts. We've got an expert here with us whose insights are as sharp as they are savvy. Please welcome Joe Schab, President and Chief Operating Officer of FinQuery. Joe, it's great to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So many of our listeners are buzzing about this topic, so why don't we go ahead and jump right in? So for our first question, how should companies prepare their software and contracts when going through an acquisition or sale?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, when a company is going through a sale process, one of the things you want to do before even getting to an offer is getting your contracts and you're effectively getting your house in order, right? So really getting all your operational components, all your compliance components, everything that's back office financially, contracts, you all want them in one place. You want them accounted for. You want to understand and be able to communicate that understanding to anybody who might be a potential acquirer. And the reason why that's important is once you get to a sale offer, right, a price offer, you go to due diligence. Now, when you go to due diligence, it's highly unlikely that, let's just say, for the sake of argument, you came to an agreement for $20 million for the price of your business. It's unlikely that you're going to come from diligence and get 21 million or 22 million. What the diligence process from the acquirer's perspective is going to be, we want to validate what we're buying. And if we don't think we're getting what we're buying, we're going to try to reduce the price or change the terms to make them more acquirer friendly and less friendly to the seller, right? And so your ability to respond quickly and accurately to requests for information, your ability to have all your information in one place, so that the acquirer can self-serve and look for information on their own. And then if there's information that they don't see in the data room, for instance, that they have an ad hoc request that you can fulfill that request really quickly, that really shows that you have your arms around the business. And when you show that you have your arms around the business, you are much, much more likely to land at the high end of your multiple range on a price than on the lower end. And conversely, if you show that you don't have your arms around the business, you are at risk of being on the low end of the price spectrum, simply because you're introducing some questions and some risks operationally into how robust you are in operating your business. And so I've been through several acquisitions, both on the buy side and the sell side. And I can tell you absolutely that companies that have their acts together, have their contracts in one place, have their software accounted for, they can speak to exactly what it's for, have eliminated redundancies, and are really crisp on their usage and their utilization. They are almost always at the top end of the multiple spectrum, and therefore, get a much better price and much better terms than if they were a shambles, right? So that's why coming in, getting your contracts in order, getting your software in order as part of an overall diligence preparation is vital to a company that's looking to be acquired or sell its business.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I believe kind of what you're talking about here, we also might refer to it as a tech audit, or at least some of that as a tech audit. So can you tell us what's involved in a tech audit during an M&A?
Sure. So A tech audit really is about conducting a full scope inventory of all your technology assets, right? It requires a deep look into your software licenses, your usage data, your vendor contracts, your tech stack, when contracts renew, um, when you're in your renewal windows, where the overages may exist, ensuring that there's no overlapping services, that you're not overutilized, underutilized, that you don't have shadow IT. It is a full technology audit, just like you would with a financial audit, right? You are doing a full audit of all your technology assets to make sure that you have all of them accounted for and that you can understand all the commercial terms of those applications.
Okay, so moving on to companies aiming to exit or looking for an IPO, what's critical in terms of software management for those companies?
Sure. So I think it's really important to note that, according to Bloomberg last year in 2023, there are about 28,000 businesses that sold last year in the United States, about 48,000 internationally, globally. Conversely, there were only 154 IPOs, right? So the vast majority of change of control um, processes are private sales, not IPOs, right?
Okay.
Uh, but they all share some really important attributes. The first is transparency, right? So whether, if you're going public, congratulations, and you're listening to this podcast, well, number one, thank you for listening. Number two, congratulations, because you're in some rarefied air. But you're entering a world of no surprises. And so, when you're entering the world of being public and you have your first analyst call, right? Or you're introducing your first quarterly report. What you don't want to be doing is being on your first analyst call and being exposed by an analyst who are very smart about a question around your expenses around a certain area, a certain function, and not having understanding of where those expenses are coming from or what that contribution is to your revenue, or to your customer acquisition costs or the like, right? And so, one, transparency and communicating to public markets, to investors, to your board is really non-negotiable. But that also really speaks to and is relevant for private sales as well, right? So every sale to a private buyer, those private buyers also really require and are owed transparency as it relates to complete visibility around where you're spending your money, right? And so this idea of software management and contract management is just an automated technology-driven way to showcase that where you're spending your money, what your commercial agreements are, what the terms are, what the important clauses are, and on the software side, um, you know, what you're spending your money on, who's using your tool, are you getting full value out of it? And so it's really a way of communicating to whichever stakeholders are relevant for you, whether they're public equity investors or whether they're private board members or private investors. It's really just being open and transparent around your financials, and a big part of your financials is your operating expenses, and your software and your contracts are, big components of that operating expense.
Okay, so it definitely sounds like transparency is key there, over everything. So, when it comes to selling to a PE firm, what are they looking for regarding software?
Yeah. So private equity firms are interested in companies that are growing profitably, and can be scaled, and potentially be used as a platform, right? Or bolted onto a platform company. So I'll explain a little bit. So when a private equity firm is looking at your company, they're looking at it because, you're growing at, I'm making up the number 25 to 35% year over year. You've got profitable growth, you're throwing off cash, you're, 22% profitable. And they believe that you could be a platform company, meaning they could bolt on other types of companies onto you and therefore making you a much bigger company and making you a category killer or the industry leader in a specific category, right? Private equity firms they all have investment theses. And if their investment thesis is we want to own X category and we believe that this company can be the platform, then they're going to be looking for your operational effectiveness and efficiencies, right? Your ability to scale businesses. They're going to be looking at the controls that you have, right? So your ability to demonstrate that you have those controls through software management, contract management, financial management, and the like. Those things are important. And just the visibility of knowing, okay, through software management, contract management, here are the relationships that I have so that when I do acquire other companies, I can then evaluate those companies to see where there are redundancies and I can eliminate costs, right? Because private equity firms are their thesis may be, hey, if we combine two companies that are in the same industry, we can eliminate costs and redundancies and capture 100% of the revenue. And therefore, 80% of the expenses will go away, but 100% of the revenue stay. And therefore, we're really scaling this business, right? And a huge part of that is the expense base, specifically the contracted spend, right? So if I'm a technology company and I acquire another technology company, I don't need two hosting providers. I want to combine hosting providers and therefore extract savings out of that one hosting provider that I've consolidated to, and or CRM systems and ERP systems and customer success platforms and the like, right? So the more that you have that sort of control and visibility around your spend, the better you're going to be positioned relative to the private equity firm.
All right, that makes complete sense. And, we've gone through a lot of the different types of acquisitions and sales that a lot of businesses might be going through. So to close this out for a final question, just when it comes to software spending, can you share some proactive strategies for sound software spending?
Yeah. So the first is just being focused on it, being intentional, right? So the first is, making the decision to be intentional about your software spend and your contracted spend. So the first thing is just pay attention to it. The second is I would recommend centralizing your procurement so that you can avoid redundant spending, underutilization, and shadow IT. If you're not a large enough organization to centralize procurement, then what I'd recommend is a hub and spoke strategy, meaning you have a centralized team. It could be a controller, could be your CFO, could be the COO. It could be somebody in IT who partners with individual functional leaders who own the tools, right? So in an example, it could be someone like myself, a president or COO, working with our head of customer success to procure a customer success tool, negotiate that contract, be the owner of that contract, right? Do the same thing with marketing for a marketing tool or sales for a sales tool, so that you have individual owners, but also a centralized hub of knowledge, right? So if you're not a huge organization, I would say if you're not, over 500 employees, then I would recommend a hub and spoke type of model.
Okay.
And then the third recommendation I'd have is conducting regular audits, right? So in those regular audits, I would recommend every quarter because things change rapidly, more rapidly than you think. And I think every 6 months is far too long in terms of time in between. And what you're trying to do is actively manage your business, and every 6 months doesn't really allow you to do that. So conduct an audit every 3 months as to where you stand on what you've purchased, what you've acquired, where the renewals are, and where you could potentially consolidate. And then the last is, once you realize candidly how difficult that is, buy a solution. Solutions like ours take a lot of the pain of onboarding, offboarding of new employees. It takes that pain off. Knowing exactly what you own and what you're subscribing to, and what exactly the number of licenses you have and how it's being utilized. Those things are incredibly valuable to be able to just look at a dashboard and go, oh, okay, this is where I stand, as opposed to having a full FTE who's dedicated for 2 weeks to conduct that audit every 3 months. So the first is, I would say, know it's an issue, be intentional about it. Centralize your procurement, either through a procurement team or hub and spoke. The third is conduct a regular audit. And the last is I would buy a solution because it can do it cheaper, faster, better than what humans can do.
Great. And I completely agree with you. It's crazy some of the success stories we've seen with people with the solution, just how quickly they can really see everything they're investing in or purchasing. So all the solutions they have in one nice, easy dashboard. So Joe, this conversation has been great. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. But your insights have been super actionable, and I'm sure our listeners will be taking notes. But we really appreciate you joining us today.
My pleasure. I hope this helps everybody get their software and contracts in tip-top shape and hopefully ready for the next big move.
And to our listeners, remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg. You can check out the additional resources attached in the show notes for this podcast. We have some blogs and guides and other things to help you get ahead of the game. So stay empowered, stay informed, and until next time, keep thriving and driving those big financial decisions. You've been listening to FinQuery Focus, the podcast that puts the spotlight on contract and spend intelligence queries that matter most to you. We'll see you next time.